Howdy everyone, it's me once again, the one and only Killer Dan. And today, as you can see, I'm still continuing my Disney movie marathon where I'll be talking about their movies, obviously, TV shows, cartoons, programs, I don't know, whatever the case may be. If it's related to Disney in any shape or form, then yes, quite clearly, I'll be talking about it. So okay, I guess technically I'll be speaking about a re-release, I suppose. And that's of course is the 30th anniversary for The Lion King. Oh, definitely. Yes, of course, I've seen this movie like the vast majority of people way before this, obviously, like ages ago. But still, I just thought this would give me a good chance, a good opportunity just to go out and just have an excuse just to get off a little bit, which you should do anyway. Come to think about it. Have some time for yourself and just enjoy the day out. It's quite warm and whatnot, so whatever. Anyway, yes, I actually went to the movie theater, and the thing is that I almost didn't come in time. I just made it to the skin of my teeth, however that phrase goes. So yeah, I almost didn't catch it in time. I almost did, but thankfully I was able to catch the movie. I mean, yes, of course, there's the whole thing with the previews. The previews would have just given me some time just to relax a little bit, I guess, before the movie actually starts, I suppose. So that would have been give me an extra few minutes or so to make it to be there, of course. Anyway, the thing is that I also want to mention the fact that yes, of course, if I'll actually look to my Disney movie collection. And by the way, this is just some of my movies, so you know. And yes, and I actually do own a copy of the movie. This is, of course, the Blu-ray release, and it also has the DVD, of course. Sure, there you go. Yeah. So yes, I actually do
No,
own a copy of this
I
movie.
was trying to record something.
And not only that, yes, of course, I could watch on Disney Plus if I wanted to. So that it is optional to watch it on Disney Plus. Yeah, but that's the thing though. When it comes to going to the movies and watching it there, that in itself is like a whole other experience, to be honest with you. And that makes it a bit more special in some ways, I guess. So there's that, I reckon. Yeah, and here's the movie. Okay, gotta get the ticket for it. And yes, yes, oh yes, of course, got the popcorn. Some movie ticket, got some extra butter. Yeah. Anywho, as always, let's talk about the plot, shall we? Even though I've already reviewed this movie a little while ago, but I'm just gonna do this anyway. Oh yeah. Dude, like I said, I was trying to say is that King is dead, and of course, the little cub character, he's devastated, of course. And yes, especially considering the fact that this has something to do with Scar. Scar made him believe that he was responsible for the death of his father. Yes, of course, the cub right here is going to be a bit stubborn. Of course, he's going to act a bit of I guess, like a kid would. I mean, that's how kids are. They, of course, are going to be a bit stubborn. They're going to be a bit rebellious. Quite clearly, yes, that's definitely going to be a thing here. And yes, he does get in trouble because of his playful nature. He's not listening too much, and his father gets really annoyed. Especially considering the fact that he's not supposed to be doing some things. And the hyenas are after him, and he gets saved by his father. And his father gets annoyed. You're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're being rebellious. And yes, ultimately, considering the fact that Scar is planning something. Scar is really sick of the king. Scar is just tired of the king being a nuisance to him. So ultimately, what this is centering around is that the villain wants the power. The villain wants the influence. The fact that he wants to get the influence, but there's somebody that's standing in the way. So ultimately, Scar is motivated by power. He wants all this power for himself. He does not want anyone to question him. He doesn't want anybody to rule over him. He wants to rule over everybody. Of course, he's going to have his minions, of course, with these animals, and he has to find a way to
Inquisitor.
overthrow the king because he wants all the power. He wants everybody in society to accept him as their one and only true ruler, and literally nobody else. So he's thirsty. He's pretty much thirsty for power. and just wants everyone to only obey him and no one else. So he has this plan to kill the king of this place. The help of the hyena characters, because like I said, they're pretty much his henchmen. Eventually, yes, his plan succeeds and Scar gets what he wants. And yes, of course, all this is just under the false pretense that is the little cub's fault. It's the fault of the cub. So Mufasa is dead. Scar is trying to make it as if that his child is the one who murdered him. So a lot of people after this as well, since the kid eventually, the kid eventually grows up, of course, but throughout this entire time, a lot of people felt that the kid, I'm just calling him the kid, but even though that's not really his name, but point being is that everybody's under the impression that even the son is also dead. They believe that both of them are dead, quite clearly. So no longer the hyperactive, cheerful cub anymore. He's kind of depressed in some ways. He just left his past behind. Not really, I guess, but it's not to an extent I should have. Yes, things do happen. Yes, things, of course, will eventually have. I mean, yes, just tragedies in everybody's past. Everybody has a past that's tragic, of course. But it's just that the main character won't let it go. The main character will not let it go. He keeps thinking about the past over and over and over and over. And the past is hunting him. And yes, eventually, one of the other characters, and I'm referring to, yeah, this character here with the staff, he comes back to his life and just warns him that, yes, the past hurts. Yes, it will continue to hurt. But you could allow it to hurt you, or you could learn from it. Of course. There's like a whole lesson with that. I mean, yes, of course, quite obviously, there's quite a bit I'm skipping over, folks. There's quite a bit I'm not discussing here, but I'll just leave it at that. And of course, considering the fact that, and yes, I know a lot of people have already seen this movie by this point, but there's like a small few who didn't. But it's like, it's kind of weird, and the thing about it's like, are you living on a rock? Anyway, point being is that, let's leave it out there. For the grand scheme of things, yes, there's a fan base for this film. Like, obviously there is. As usual, there is going to be this moral lesson. Quite clearly, Disney wants to pull at the heartstrings. Like the father and the son had such a great relationship. They were getting along despite some disagreements. But ultimately, his father dies, and just becomes like an entire thing here where it becomes a moment where it gets kind of sad. Okay, really sad. That's an understatement. A cat has been used as the main character. No, definitely. I don't see why not, because a lot of people do like felines, and it just seems like a pretty obvious choice to do so when it comes to this kinds of characters. When you think about it, when it comes to movies for the family, they often use animals anyway to begin with as a way to make it relatable for the animals. Is a common thing with children's movies. Even though this comes off more of a family movie, yes, there's a difference, but that's fine. But the thing is that what I'm trying to get at, it's not just Disney. When you think about it, it's usually a lot of people that would do this kind of a thing, that would try to use animals as a way to tell the story. And this is no different when it comes to that kind of a thing. Because many other studios, many directors are guilty of this kind of a thing. But ultimately, when you think about it, what really matters is making a good story. That's at the end of the day, that's all we care about, is having a good story here. Quite clearly, Scar here, he's just despicable. He really is. He would just do anything he could to get the upper hand because he's the bad guy. He's the villain. Anywho, this is at the end of the day a coming of an age drama movie. This is a coming of age drama type of film that they have made. Very clearly, at the end of the day, he's pretty much has grown up in exile, and that's what this is trying to, of course, center around. He grew up in exile, the rightful king has to return to challenge the villain, the tyranny over the kingdom. Quite clearly, that's pretty much what this is about. But ultimately, at its core, the the main character grew up in exile, who happens to be the rightful king and has to challenge the villain of the story. That's, I mean, in other words, that's what it's trying to center around of this kind of a thing. But anyway, I just thought I'd just talk about this. This film was originally released all the way back in 1994. Yes, it's been that long. And the film did receive critical acclaim for its themes, music, story, and animation. So there was that. And this film became one of the highest grossing films of that year, theatrically speaking. And that's, of course, led into the idea that there'll be more of these movies, which they originally did. And anyway, that's the thing, folks. I did cover a lot of the other entries of the series, by the way. I was wondering, I did cover some of the other stuff as well, just so you know. And the thing is that, yeah, Hakuna Matata. Of course, Hakuna Matata, that thing of no worries, that's supposed to be like a little slang here. Yeah, that gets brought up right here. I'm pretty sure that's like one of the first things that comes to mind whenever anyone mentions this movie, Hakuna Matata thing. And yeah, I'll definitely admit that's a nice little moment. It's fine. It helps to push the story along. There's a few musical moments here and there. And when it comes to musicals, I'm kind of like whatever about them. Musicals aren't really my thing, if I'll be honest with you folks. But this movie wasn't really too shabby with what they were trying to do at the end of the day. I can see why people will like this because, for one, hey, lions are cool and whatnot. People like lions. They are such dominant creatures. They're gonna be dangerous creatures in a lot of ways. And yes, the movie does get pretty dramatic, ultimately, so there's that. And yes, I can see why people will like this film, really. The animation is really good. Even for an older film, the animation isn't too shabby for what they're trying to do here. The animation is quite good. And yes, I realize that a lot of the Disney films nowadays have been being produced in CGI, but this was released in its original hand-drawn animation. In 2002, the film was re-released on IMAX and large format theaters because they thought this was a good idea. So this sort of thing has already been a thing because it was discussed that ever since its original release, it's been a good while. There was a whole new generation of kids who haven't really seen it, so this seemed like a good idea at the time. And then in 2011, they did this whole thing with 3D conversion. It was converted to 3D for a 2-week limited theatrical re-release, and subsequently 3D Blu-ray release that was opened simultaneously, provided of course. So that definitely did occur. Not only that, just last year in 2023, Disney re-released the film for its 100th anniversary between September 29th and October 2nd of 2023. So that was in theaters, quite obviously. But of course, the thing is that the version I'm reviewing, 30th anniversary for this video anyway. Nonetheless, I just thought I'd just use this as a way to just talk about Disney in some kind of way, which I ultimately did right here, folks. The animation is quite good even for an older movie. I do realize that Disney is known for its animation, and usually their animation is top notch. This is definitely the case. It's really nice to see this entire movie on the big screen. And yes, it's a whole spectacle when you think about it. Like I was saying earlier, it gets really dramatic, and there was that. I just showed because they're trying to have some kind of drama thrown into the script, and it shows. So definitely, there's gonna be a bit of drama quite in here. And yes, obviously, and not only that, for such a special occasion, Disney Company is clearly going to have some merch thrown out for this kind of a thing. I don't see nothing wrong with that. It's just their way to trying to make some money. And that in itself is nothing inherently wrong. That's fine. If you want to do that, sure. Like I was saying earlier, is that there's a lot of people who like this movie anyway. Quite clearly, yes, you're gonna actually make a quick buck for this kind of a thing because there's already a built-in audience for those who really did enjoy the film, and that's fine. But anyway, like I was saying, the animation itself is quite good for its worth. The anime is quite good. I mean, yes, it's there's something to be said when it comes to the hand drawn animation. The hand drawn animation is to be missed. I will definitely admit that. I'm not really the one to bash 3D animation, okay? Just throwing it out there. I'm not the one to really bash 3D animation. I personally don't mind CGI animation in movies. I don't hate it, really. Just throwing it out there. I'm not going to automatically assume that it's just garbage just because of that. Which, by the way, I've already discussed this in a separate video a while back where a lot of people just trash talk the 3D animation just because it's done on a computer. I mean, yeah, okay, sure. There's a special touch when it comes to hand drawn animation. If it's hand drawn animation, yes, there's a definitely a special touch when it comes to that. It feels more personal for some people because of that, because it's hand drawn, not done on a machine. That's something to be said about that. I would agree. But don't just dismiss it just because it's CGI. I'm just throwing it out there, right? I just I just don't want to repeat the same thing I've already mentioned in my previous video, which I already discussed a while back. I don't want to be on this too much. Nevertheless, I can say the voice acting is solid. The voice acting is quite good. Yeah, the voice acting is really definitely top notch. And it's nice to hear the surround sound. Oh yeah. There is a lesson to be learned here. As I've said earlier, and there's definitely a lesson to be learned here. And that is fine because Disney has done this kind of a thing anyway quite a few times. I'm not saying literally every single movie in existence needs to have some kind of lesson, but if you're going to do it, make sure it's done properly. And not make it seem so ham fisted in some ways. And it's done just fine in this one. It's done just fine in this one. Because it's not so in your face, but it's done and it's written in such a way that he's a bit subtle about it to some extent, I guess you can say, and that's fine. It's not done in a rather weird way or whatnot. It's not doesn't seem pretentious like some movies I've seen over the years that come out really pretentious about it. And thankfully that's not the case here, of course. Anywho, I would recommend this if you can in theaters that is. If you're a fan of this, if you like The Lion King, if you're a fan of this series, I would definitely say give this a chance. Again, if you're able to, that is. If you're able to. This film was already re-released multiple times already by this point. And the thing is that this was the only time I've just seen this film during one of its re-releases. I didn't catch the film the other times they re-released this. This was pretty much the first time I've actually seen it during this one of its many re-releases. And that's fine in some ways. I'm not gonna complain about that really because Disney has done that before. Disney has released some of the films multiple times in the past, so it's not like that they have only done this to Lion King. Just to be perfectly clear, they have not done this only to Lion King. They've done this to several of their other films, been released multiple times. And sometimes, yes, some of the movies had actually done better during their re-releases than compared to their initial release. So I guess that counts for something, I reckon. I don't see why not. But anyway, folks, I thought this was a pretty good experience. Like I was saying, I like the voice acting. The voice acting is really good in here. You can obviously tell that the people who were behind this feature really hired talented crew to be behind this. The pacing is really good though. There's not one moment where I felt like, okay, can we just get on with it? So thankfully, the pacing here was actually quite good. The pacing is really brisk. Nothing felt like it dragged on or anything like that. The pacing is really good here. So I like that. As for the singing, yes, the singing isn't too shabby either. The singing is quite good as well. I like that. On top of all that, folks, this is definitely a well crafted film. I would definitely say that. So, again, if you have not seen this film for whatever reason, I would definitely recommend it. Or if you have seen the film already, like I have, you can use this as an excuse to get off a little bit, like I did. Anyway, I'll give this version of the film an overall rating of a 7.2 out of 10. It's a 7.2 out of 10 for me. As always, thanks for watching. See ya. Oh, yeah.